At the start of one of my recent classes, the students were getting in this really lively discussion about the net carbs, the difference between a carbohydrate and a complex carbohydrate and a simple carbohydrate and fiber, and how does that go with net carbs, and how does that count with calories, and what if you have diabetes? How about type 1 diabetes, type 2? Like, we were having this discussion within like 3 minutes before class started. It is a worthy discussion to have, but it needs a little extra time. So today I'm going to replay for you a recent episode from just a few months ago called Net Carbs. What are they? What you're going to get out of this episode is, well, your head's going to spin. But if you are really looking at dialing in how you're eating, you're already eating pretty well, or you just like geeking out on this data of how this works. Net carbs is something that always comes up. It's a fascinating one. It'll make your nose wrinkle, and it'll make you even more interested. But it's a worthy thing to take a look at, and it's worthwhile knowing what this whole thing is. So enjoy this replay. Net carbs, what the heck are they? Well, hey there. If you've been thinking about tracking your calories, what you eat, for the purpose of going into what we call a calorie deficit for losing weight, you're going to come across something called net carbs. And I tell you, everybody who starts tracking things in detail, starts reading those nutrition labels more than ever, comes across this thing called net carbs, where at first we get excited about, then we get really pissed off at it, and then we're scratching our head wondering, what is this thing? Why do I care? And what is it going to do for my health? So this is the deal. When the whole keto fad, I don't know, keto's, who cares? We're not going to worry about whether keto's a fad or not. We'll just call it a fad. When the whole keto thing came around, we were all looking at low carb. So remember our macros: protein, fat, carbohydrates. Currently today, in our common knowledge, we lump everything we eat into protein, fat, and carbs. Now then people say, well, what about alcohol? Where do we lump that? There's a debate. You can put it in fat or you can put it in carbs. It just, we're not quite sure. It's poison. Okay. So when you start eating healthy and looking in and going to the grocery store and reading nutrition labels, which are fantastic, it's actually really a pretty remarkable thing. Whether you're pro or against big government, the fact that we live in a country where we're required to report nutrition facts on food is really amazing. It's really pretty awesome. And I know we got a long way to make those labels accessible, but it's fantastic that we have that. They all track protein, fat, and carbs. Now, carbohydrates are the foods like your breads, your pastas, your legumes, like things. I'm going to assume you know what a carb is. Then we look into carbs and realize, okay, now within a carb, there's highly refined processed carbs. That's our bagels. That's our donuts, our tortillas, anything and everything that's pure sugar or candy or sweets or treats or cake. Like those all get lumped into kind of one bucket, not kind of one bucket, but a bucket. Then we have this other kind of carb, which we all know very well, called fiber. Fiber is also considered a carb. Fiber is considered the part of the food, the carbohydrate, that your body, your intestines doesn't necessarily digest. And so it helps keep you regular in the bathroom, and it helps keep things moving and grooving down there. We've known it seems to be very protective against colon cancers, irritable bowel syndrome, a whole bunch of other things. Fiber is our friend. We like fiber. So this looks like basically the peel of any fruit and vegetable. So like the peel around your apple or your grapes, or the little, covering around the blueberry blueberry edges. So that's why they say, don't peel your apple, eat the peel with it. This is your whole grains that have the whole husk of the grain in there. Those kind of things are the fiber. Now, here's where we all get to get our panties in a bunch. As we know, not all carbs are the same. A fiber metabolizes in your body so differently from a highly refined processed, we'll just say donut. So different that you really can't even say they're the same food, and you really can't lump them together in the same thing at all. So for example, apple juice, that juice, the sugar in the juice, it's like straight sugar. You might as well mainline it into your veins, as we know. Eating an apple, the whole apple with the skin, metabolizes in your body completely different. Now, apples have, they spike blood sugar. If you have diabetes, the apples spike the blood sugar, but an apple with the skin won't spike the blood sugar as quickly or acutely as the same amount of apple juice straight on, mainlined. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to have a little bit of fun with this. We are going to compare the effect of net carbs, food that has fiber in them versus food that doesn't have fiber in them. We're going to compare a serving size of blueberries, which is 1/2 cup of fresh blueberries, with one single donut hole at a Krispy Kreme donut factory. Now, we're not talking the whole donut. We're just talking one of those little circle dots. Okay, here we go. Let's compare these side by side. First of all, you can eat a whole 1/2 cup of blueberries, 42 calories. Remember that number. You can eat one little itty bitty cutie pie donut hole, and it's 45 calories. So essentially, if you go to Krispy Kreme's and you get donut holes, make sure you enjoy every single bite of it, because every single donut hole you eat is going to be the same amount of calories as blueberries, a whole 1/2 cup of fresh, glorious blueberries. And so, yes, I do not want to moralize food. I do not want to say this food is good food. This food is bad, evil food, and you are bad and evil if you eat this food. No, I don't want to do that. But having data is really good to know this. Okay. Net carbohydrates. And this is where it gets tricky. The bottom line here is I am not a fan of tracking net carbs. Okay. And if somebody says, well, what about if I have diabetes? Okay, we'll talk about that in a little bit. But overall, not a fan of it. Here's the thing. Total carbohydrates for the blueberries, 11 grams. Total carbohydrates for the donut, 5 grams. Here's where it gets tricky. There is 2 grams of fiber in the blueberries, 0 grams of fiber in the donut holes. Fiber, my friends, is what we call that indigestible part of the carbohydrate, which theoretically, technically, there are marketers and folks saying that if you eat that 2 grams of fiber of the blueberries, your body's not digesting the fiber. Your body is actually pooping it out the other end. And this is an argument for why a calorie is not a calorie is not a calorie. Because if you eat 2 grams of fiber and your body doesn't digest it and it poops it out, then there is calories you ate that does not go to your hips. Aha! So we think, oh, then I just want to eat all kinds of high fiber food because then it'll go straight through me. Yeah, well, that you could eat sawdust too, and that's not good. But there's different kinds of fiber. And here's where it gets tricky. Manufacturers now are marketing things like bread and tortillas, saying it's Carb Balance, low carb. You know, this is a great thing for you. You can have this tortilla and it's full of, low carb stuff. How cool is that? Almost every single one of those, when you look at the nutrition facts and what is actually in those products, it is crap. So they put in, alcohol sugars, which is a weird thing to say. That's actually a fiber that our body doesn't necessarily digest. They put in psyllium husk, which isn't terrible for you. But you can buy a psyllium husk supplement and just eat that, drink that. Lots of things that really aren't food for us, but make it so the manufacturers can market it as Carb Balance, even though it's not. Here's the crazy piece. All right. This is where you got it. Like my geeky friends, you're going to like this. You got to take notes. It's going to break your brain. Maybe not. Somehow, some reason on the nutritional facts of a label, manufacturers are allowed to take fiber calories and pull it out of the total calories of what you're eating. So, for example, I've got in front of me here, these are Mission Carb Balance tortillas. And it says, 30, it says 30 grams of carbs, minus 25 grams of fiber. This is the big advertising. Carb Balance, whole wheat, 5 net carbs, high fiber, 110 calories. It says 30 grams of carbs minus 25 grams of fiber equals 5 grams of net carbs. It says there's only 110 calories per tortilla. But when you do the math, it doesn't pan out. Now, if you're not a numbers and math person, don't worry. In about 30 seconds, we'll be back. So when I go through these numbers and math, if all you hear is wah, 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 totally fine. You'll be fine. So here we go. Let's do some really quick numbers here. So this has 6 grams of fat, 30 grams of total carbohydrates, 9 grams of protein. When you put all that together, this tortilla has about 160 calories in it. Yet the nutrition facts label says it only has 110. So it is hiding from us a whole bunch of calories. So you can eat this thinking you're only eating 110 calories when actually you're eating anywhere between 160 and 200 calories, because for some reason our manufacturers are allowed to back out the fiber content and not count it as calories because of the logic saying that you actually poop out the fiber, you don't digest the fiber, so it shouldn't count as calories. All right, here's where it gets tricky. Not all fiber is just digested or gone through without being digested. Some fiber does get digested. The current research is divided on this topic. Some individuals during research, and you got to imagine, how do you decide this? Like here in a science experiment, here you go. Here's some blueberries. And now how do we metabolically actually tell how much of that fiber got digested by your intestines and how much of it didn't? Like what? Like who's doing that exam? Who's doing that research? Thank you. I would not want to be you. If I ever think I'm having a bad day, I'll just glad I'm not in the research lab trying to see how much fiber gets pooped out versus absorbed. Okay. Let's come back. Let's get back on topic. Okay. So some of this fiber does get digested. So if some folks say half of it gets digested, some say not much of it at all gets digested. Not all fiber is made the same. Now, here's where it gets even more interesting. We're doing a lot of research on gut biome and gut microbiology and the bacteria in our gut. There is also some research showing, and I tell you, I don't know how they know this or even who they is completely, but there is some research and hypothesis that a lot of fiber that we don't digest, the gut bacteria, some gut bacteria that we have does digest that fiber. Get ready to get your mind blown. And that gut bacteria then poops out some kind of a byproduct that your body can absorb as calories. Okay. Yeah. So this, we'll nutshell this in a little bit. So some folks, if you eat high fiber, it's actually a great way to help you feel full. We know fiber is good for us. Nobody's debating whether or not fiber is good or bad for us. We know we should eat it. We know we should have, ballpark minimum, 18, 20 grams of fiber every day. Ballpark is different for everybody. If you want me to dial that in for you, reach out. Happy to dial in all this for you. And at the same time, when it really comes down to it, this is partly why eating a healthy diet becomes so important. Because let's go back to the blueberry versus the glazed donut holes. The fiber is a big part of what helps us feel full. If you eat 10 glazed donut holes, that's 430 calories of the Krispy Kreme donut holes. 10 donut holes, easy, no problem. I could do that in 5 minutes. Probably less. The same amount of calories in blueberries would be 5 whole cups of blueberries. Now, how fast do you think you could eat 5 whole cups of blueberries? Yeah. And blueberries are like a powerhouse for nutrition. So really the whole fiber, net carb, everything comes down to eat healthy, eat whole foods, and really this carb balance thing, like the tortilla thing, it's really the ingredients are not that great. So you've got diabetes. You're really trying to manage your blood sugar. Here's what the American Diabetes Association says on net carbs, directly from their website. While you might see it on some food packaging, the term net carbs does not have a legal definition and is not used by the Federal Food and Drug Administration or recognized by the American Diabetes Association. The FDA recommends using total carbs on the nutrition facts label. And net carbs are determined by subtracting any fiber or sugar alcohols from the label from the total carbohydrates. This is assuming that fiber and sugar alcohols are not absorbed or metabolized, but this is not always the case, and some are partially digested and therefore still provide calories as well as impact blood sugar. The equation used to calculate net carbs is not entirely accurate because the contribution of fiber and sugar alcohols to total carbohydrates depend on the types present. The type of fiber or sugar alcohol used is not indicated on these nutrition fact label. Therefore, the effect on blood glucose and possible insulin therapy adjustments cannot be determined precisely. For this reason, we recommend using the total grams of carbohydrates and closely monitoring your blood sugar when consuming foods high in fiber or sugar alcohols to determine how they affect your body. All right, there we go. So this whole net carb thing, we're going to chalk it up to a way that food manufacturers have weaseled their way around the loopholes of the laws or the guidelines of the FDA, Federal Food and Drug Administration, weaseled their way around it to market something to us. And so this is why any and every time we buy any packaged food, especially if it's washed with all kinds of healthy for you labels, we want to be reading the actual ingredients in there so we know what we are actually putting in our bodies. There you go. That's the scoop on net carbs. If you have any thoughts or questions that you want me to dive into a little bit more on net carbs or any other similar topic, do reach out to me. And if you're listening in on Apple Podcasts, scroll down to the bottom of this episode, give it a 5-star rating, take a time to write a review, write a sentence or two about, something you've really gained. You could even be like, hey, great episode on net carbs. Now I know a little bit more about what I'm supposed to do. This is actually super helpful in helping others find this podcast here, Couch to Active. Alrighty, this is Lynn Lindberg, the host of the podcast Couch to Active, and we run the business called couch2active.com. Head on over there, check us out. It's fully accessible to anybody who is visually impaired or blind, but you don't have to be blind to join the fun. That's couch2active.com.